My fiancé left me for a billionaire CEO while I was coding my startup. Ideas are worthless without connections, he sneered as he stole my work. Months later, he invited me to their wedding. I showed up in a white suit. What happened next left the entire room speechless. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. I never thought I'd be the woman with a revenge story. Honestly, I never thought I'd be the type. My name is Maren Brooks, and for a long time, I was just a programmer. 3 years ago, I was living in Brooksville. You know, one of those small towns where everyone knows your name and you can get a decent cup of coffee at the diner. It's quiet. It's predictable. I had a small apartment, a mortgage that felt way too big for it, and a startup idea that kept me up at night. My living room wasn't really a living room, it was mostly computer equipment, servers humming, and wires everywhere. And I had a fiancé. His name was Derek Shaw. I thought he was the love of my life. I really did. We had a 5-year plan. We had inside jokes. We were a team. Or so I thought. I remember this one evening, it was a Tuesday, late. It was raining outside, that cold November rain that gets into your bones. The only light in the apartment was the blue glow of my 3 monitors. I was so close. I was hunched over the keyboard, my hair in a messy bun I'd probably had for 2 days, putting the finishing touches on what I just knew, would be revolutionary software. I could feel it. That breakthrough was just on the other side of this one last bug. Maren, we need to talk. I barely looked up. My fingers were still flying. Just 5 more minutes, babe, I mumbled. I'm almost there with this code. This algorithm is it's working. No, Maren. Now. His voice. It had an edge. A coldness I hadn't heard before. It cut right through my concentration. I finally turned around, swiveling in my old office chair. I had to blink a few times, my eyes adjusting to the dim light of the room. He was standing by the doorway. But he wasn't in the sweats he usually wore around the house. He was in his good suit. The expensive one. The one he'd bought for his sister's wedding. And next to him, by the door, were 2 large suitcases. Not 1. 2. My stomach just dropped. It felt like I'd swallowed a block of ice. I could feel the blood drain from my face. What's going on? I asked. My voice was a whisper, because some deep, animal part of me already knew. Derek? What is this? He didn't walk over to me. He didn't try to hug me or soften the blow. He just walked to the coffee table, which was covered in my notepads, empty coffee mugs, and technical manuals. He set down the keys to our apartment. Right on top of my notes. I'm leaving, Maren. I'm done. My mind couldn't catch up. It was like the words were in a foreign language. Done? Done with what? The code? I told you, I just need a little more time. The investor meeting next week. He laughed. And it wasn't the laugh I'd fallen in love with. It wasn't the one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. This one was cold, cruel, and full of something I'd never heard before. Contempt. Done with this, he said, gesturing to my computers, to our mismatched furniture we'd gotten from thrift stores, to the whole life we'd built. We've been working through it for 3 years, Maren. I'm done living like this. I am done with the promises that your big break is just around the corner. He started pacing, and the anger I hadn't seen before was coming off him in waves. I am done with coupon clipping. I am done with budget grocery shopping and driving that beat-up old car while my friends are vacationing in Europe, in Cancun, in places with sun. I'm done. I stood up. The code, the project, all of it just vanished from my mind. My legs felt weak, like they were made of cotton. Derek, what are you talking about? I tried to reach for his hand, but he pulled away like I was poison. We can work through whatever this is. We always do. Remember the 5-year plan? We're in year 4. This is the hard part, you knew this. No, he said, his voice flat. We don't. You work. You hide in your code, you hide in this mess. And I'm just supposed to wait around for this fantasy to pay off? I'm 32, Marin. I don't want to wait anymore. It's not a fantasy. I was desperate now, my voice rising. I'm close. So close. This platform could change everything for us. I have meetings lined up, I just need a little more time. You promised you'd give me time. That's what you said about the last 3 projects, Marin. He crossed his arms, looking at me like I was a stranger. Like I was something pathetic he'd stepped in. Then he delivered the final blow. I've met someone else. Those 4 words. They hit me like a physical thing. Like a punch to the chest that knocked all the air out of me. I actually stumbled back and had to grab the back of my chair. I managed to ask one question. Who? Diana Sterling. The name didn't register at first. It was too big, too famous. It was like he'd said he was leaving me for a movie star. Diana Sterling, the she-wolf of Wall Street, the CEO of Sterling Solutions, one of the largest, most ruthless tech companies on the East Coast. I had read about her in magazines. I had, God help me, dreamed of pitching my ideas to her company one day. The Diana Sterling? I said, and my voice cracked. How did you even meet her? He had the grace to look away, just for a second. A slight flush crept up his cheeks. I applied for an executive assistant position at her company 6 months ago. 6 months. The timeline clicked into place. The late nights at the office. The new suit. The sudden disinterest in our budget. I didn't tell you, he added quickly, because I knew you'd get weird about it. I knew you'd see it as me not believing in your work. 6 months? I repeated. The room was tilting sideways. I had to sit down. You've been seeing her for 6 months? It wasn't like that at first, he said, all defensive. She's my boss. But, yes. We've been together for about 4 months now. And Marin, he looked at me, and the pity in his eyes was worse than the anger. She can give me the life I want. The life I deserve. The life you promised me when we got engaged. I felt like I was drowning. So all those late nights. At work. I was with Diana, he finished. His eyes glittered with excitement. And I realized I was looking at a total stranger. Her world, Marin, it's everything I've ever wanted. She has a penthouse in New York. A vacation home in the Hamptons. She flies private, Marin. Private. He said it with such reverence. Private. And what about love? I whispered. My throat felt raw. Do you love her? Derek hesitated. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to know the answer before he said it. I'm learning to. But what I know for sure is that I don't love this life anymore. He gestured around our modest apartment. I don't love watching you waste your potential on pipe dreams that never pay off. This isn't a life, Marin, it's a waiting room. Waste my potential? That stung. Derek, I've been building something revolutionary. You've been hiding from reality, he snapped. Real successful people, Marin, they aren't holed up in apartments in Brooksville. They're out there, in New York, in Silicon Valley. They're making connections. They're making things happen. They're not just dreaming. I was stunned by the venom in his voice. This wasn't the man who'd held my hand when my father died. This wasn't the man who'd helped me build my first server rack, who'd brought me coffee at 3 a.m. So that's it? I said, my voice numb. After 5 years together, you're just walking out. Diana is waiting for me downstairs. He checked his watch. A new one. Gold. One I'd never seen before. I'll be staying at her place in the city until I find my own. Her lawyer will be in touch about dividing our assets. Though, he added, with that same cruel smile, there's not much to divide, is there? The look he gave me. It was so full of contempt. It physically hurt. Derek, please, I said, and I hated the desperation in my voice. Just give me one more chance. The platform is almost ready. I have meetings with investors next week. I can show you. I've heard it all before, Marin. And even if by some miracle you do succeed this time, it's too late for us. He picked up his suitcases. Diana knows people. Real investors. Not the small-time angels you've been chasing. She could have made things happen for you, but you were too proud to even consider asking for help. I wanted to make it on my own merit. And look where that got you, he said, shaking his head. Where it got us. He headed for the door, and a terrible, terrible thought occurred to me. A thought so cold it stopped me from crying. Derek, wait. He paused, his hand on the doorknob, his back to me. Did you tell her about my platform? About the algorithms I've been developing? He didn't turn around. He just stood there for a long time. The only sound was the hum of my servers and the rain lashing against the window. She was interested, he finally said, his voice quiet. She's a CEO, Marin. She's always looking for the next big thing. She asked questions. I might have shared some details. The betrayal was complete. It wasn't just that he was leaving me for another woman. It wasn't just that she was rich and powerful. He had taken my work. My life's work. My baby. And he had given it to her. You had no right, I said, and my voice wasn't desperate anymore. It was hard. It was cold. He turned, and for a second I thought I saw remorse. But then it was gone, replaced by that defensive arrogance. It doesn't matter, Marin. Even if your idea is as good as you think, Diana has the resources to develop it better and faster. That's reality. Get out, I said quietly. Gladly. He opened the door, letting in a rush of cold, wet air. Oh, and Marin? I didn't look at him. Diana says, she says people like you are a dime a dozen in this industry. Ideas are worthless without the capital and connections to back them up. You should remember that. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut. I stood there for I don't know how long. An hour? 2. The silence in the apartment was deafening. All I could hear was the hum of my servers, mocking me. I slowly walked to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and pulled out a bottle of whiskey we'd been saving for a special occasion. This wasn't what I'd had in mind, but it seemed appropriate. I didn't even get a glass. I just sat on the cold kitchen floor, the linoleum sticky under my feet, and I drank. I drank until I was numb enough to think. He hadn't just broken my heart. He had put my entire future at risk. If Diana Sterling used my algorithms, years of my work would be worthless. I'd be competing against my own creation, backed by one of the biggest tech companies on the East Coast. I woke up on the kitchen floor. The sun was streaming in, and my neck was stiff. For a split second, I had that blissful moment of confusion before I remembered. And then it all came crashing down again. He was gone. He took my work. He called me worthless. I stayed in that apartment for 3 days. I didn't shower. I didn't answer my phone, which buzzed with texts from my mom, from my friends. I ordered pizza, ate it cold, and stared at the wall. I tried to work, but I'd just sit in my chair, look at the lines of code, and see his face, hear his words. A dime a dozen. On the third day, I was sitting on the sofa, staring at a blank TV screen, when my best friend Carla just walked in. She still had her key. "Oh, honey," she said, and her voice was full of a pity that made me want to scream. She didn't hug me. She just walked over, grabbed the empty pizza box, and threw it in the trash. "You smell, Marin," she said, not unkindly. "Go take a shower." "He left me," I whispered. "I gathered that," she said. "Go. Shower. Now. I'm making coffee." When I came out, wrapped in a towel, she was sitting at my kitchen table. She's a lawyer, specializing in intellectual property. She's sharp as a tack and doesn't take nonsense from anyone. I told her everything. The breakup. Diana Sterling. The algorithms. He told her what? Carla's voice was suddenly all business. "Marin, that's a major breach. Did he sign an NDA when you started developing this?" "An NDA? Carla, he was my fiancé. He was my life. I didn't think I needed one. He helped me brainstorm names, for God's sake." "Rookie mistake," she sighed. "A big one. But all isn't lost. You need to stop staring at the wall and start fighting. Document everything. Right now." She slid a legal pad across the table. "When you started development, what specific proprietary elements you created, timestamps of code commits. Every email you ever sent him mentioning it. If Sterling releases anything resembling your platform, we can still make a case." "A case?" I said bitterly. "Against Diana Sterling? I'd be in litigation for years. I'd be broke before we even got to discovery." "One battle at a time, Marin," Carla advised, her voice firm. "First, you need to get out of this apartment. Second, finish your platform. Get it to market. Establish yourself. Get your own copyright and patents filed. Yesterday. Then we worry about Sterling." She was right. The pity party was over. That night, sitting on my cold kitchen floor again, but this time with a laptop and a legal pad, I made a decision. I wouldn't just finish the platform. I'd make it better than anything Diana Sterling could ever imagine. And then, I would make her pay. I would make both of them pay. For taking my love, and for trying to steal my future. The next morning, I woke up, and the determination was still there. It felt cold and hard, like a rock in my stomach. I made coffee, and this time I didn't spill it. I sat down at my desk. And I got to work. For the next 4 days, I didn't just code. I attacked the keyboard. I was fueled by rage, caffeine, and a cold, hard desire to prove them wrong. I barely slept. I ate cereal out of the box. I was in a fugue state, a coding marathon. On the 4th day of this, just as I was finally fixing a major bug, my doorbell rang. I ignored it. It rang again, more insistent. I trudged to the door, peering through the peephole. It was a courier. A professional-looking guy in a uniform. I opened the door, and he handed me a sleek, silver envelope from Sterling Solutions. My heart hammered against my ribs. He asked me to sign for it, and my hand was shaking so badly I could barely write my name. I shut the door, my back leaning against it, and tore it open. Inside was a letter. And a check. The letter was on thick, expensive-feeling paper. It was from Diana Sterling's legal department. It was full of condescending jargon, but the message was clear. It acknowledged the potential for conceptual similarities between her company's upcoming platform and rumors of my work. It was a good faith gesture to avoid any future misunderstandings. It was, in short, a payoff. A dismissal. And the check. The check was for $50,000. $50,000. I stared at it. That's what she thought my years of work were worth. That's the price she put on stealing my ideas. On stealing my life. It wasn't a settlement. It was an insult. It was her, in her penthouse, laughing at me. Telling me to take the chump change, be a good little girl, and go away. I stared at the check, and the fury that had been simmering for a week just exploded. It was a hot, white rage. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked very calmly to my desk. I picked up the check. And I ripped it into confetti. Tiny, tiny pieces. I let them flutter into the trash can. Then I grabbed my phone. "Walter?" I said, when my one potential angel investor answered. Walter Hayes. An older, semi-retired tech guy I'd met at a small-time conference months ago. He'd seemed intrigued by my ideas but had been non-committal. "Marin, I was wondering if I'd hear from you. How's that project coming?" "I'm ready to show you the platform," I said, my voice steady and cold. "Tomorrow. 9 a.m. The next day, I put on the only decent blazer I owned. It was from a discount store, and it smelled a little like my closet. I drove to Walter Hayes's home office. It was one of those rooms with dark wood, books everywhere, and a faint smell of old money and leather. It was terrifying. I'd worked through the night to prepare the demo, pushing myself past exhaustion to make sure every feature was perfect. I felt sick with nerves. "So, Marin," Walter said, peering at me over his glasses. "Derek won't be joining us? He usually sits in on these meetings with you. He was your business manager, wasn't he?" My throat tightened. "No. We're separated." Walter raised an eyebrow. He was a shrewd old guy, he didn't miss much. "I'm sorry to hear that. Recent?" "Very." I cleared my throat, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "But that won't affect the project. If anything, I'm more committed than ever to making this work." "I see." Walter studied me for a long moment. I could see him calculating. Was I a mess? Was I a bad investment? "Well," he finally said, leaning back. "The floor is yours. Let's see what you've got." I took a deep breath. And I launched into it. I didn't just talk. I showed him. I explained how my predictive analytics platform could process unstructured data, social media comments, customer service logs, all the messy, human stuff, faster and more accurately than anything currently on the market. As I demonstrated the software, I could see Walter's interest visibly grow. He leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the screen. He stopped me, asked me to run a query. I did. "This is impressive, Marin," he said when I finished. "Very impressive. But I've been hearing rumors. Rumors that Sterling Solutions is working on something very similar, scheduled to launch within the next quarter." My heart sank. So Derek hadn't wasted any time. Diana was moving fast. "Mine is better," I said firmly. "And I can prove it." "How?" "Give me a data set. Any data set. Something your team is stuck on. Let me show you what this platform can do in real time." Walter considered this. He liked a gamble. He picked up his phone, made a brief call, and within minutes, his assistant emailed over a massive, messy data set from one of his portfolio companies. Customer behavior patterns that had been proving impossible to analyze effectively. "They've had a team of 6 on this for a month," he said. "Show me what you can do with this," he challenged. I imported the data. I set the parameters. I let my algorithms work their magic. The room was silent, except for the click of my laptop. Within minutes, not weeks, minutes, patterns began to emerge. Clear correlations. Predictive insights. Things that would have taken a team of analysts weeks to find. Walter leaned so far forward he was almost out of his chair. His eyes were wide. "That's remarkable." "This is just the beginning," I said, feeling the first real spark of hope since Derek had walked out. "With proper funding, I can expand the capabilities even further. I can scale it." By the end of the meeting, Walter wasn't just interested. He was excited. "I'm prepared to offer $2 million in seed funding," he said, scribbling on a legal pad. "For 15% equity." I almost fainted. $2 million. "But I need you to move fast, Marin. If Sterling beats you to market, even with a worse product, her name and connections." "They won't," I promised. "And Walter?" "I need something else." He looked up, pen poised. "What's that?" "Connections." My voice was firm. "I need to be introduced to the right people. Not just for the business, but to build a profile. I want the tech world to know who is behind this platform." Walter smiled, a slow, appreciative smile. "That, Marin, might be even more valuable than the money. Consider it done." As I walked out of his office with a signed term sheet, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a very long time. Hope. And something else, too. The first, cold, calculating stirrings of a plan. A plan that went beyond just succeeding. A plan to take everything from Diana Sterling, just as she had tried to take everything from me. The next 3 months were a blur. A blur of 20-hour workdays, endless coffee, and code. I barely left my apartment, except for meetings with Walter and his network. I officially incorporated Brooks Analytics. I hired a small but brilliant team of developers, 2 guys, Raj and Kevin, and another woman, Sarah. All outliers like me, all with something to prove. We worked out of my living room, which was now even more full of computers. The smell of stale pizza and energy drinks was constant. But it was exciting. We were building something real. In the middle of all this, I had to finalize the legal side of things with Derek. I met Carla at a small coffee shop. She slid the papers across the table. "This is it," she said. "Finalizes the asset split. Since you weren't married, it's just dividing what was jointly owned. Which, frankly, isn't much. He's not contesting the apartment, since you're the one on the mortgage. He doesn't want anything from our modest assets," I said, the words bitter. "He's confident his future with Diana will provide all he needs." "His loss." Carla tapped the paper. "Sign here, Marin." I signed my name. And I felt nothing. No sadness. No anger. Just relief. It was done. That part of my life was over. It was just paper. "Good," Carla said, taking the papers. "Now, go build your empire." 6 months after Derek walked out, Brooks Analytics launched a TechCrunch Disrupt. Walter had coached me on my presentation. He'd helped me polish my image. "You're not just a coder anymore, Marin," he'd said gently. "You're the face of a multi-million-dollar company." He hired a consultant for a day. She was this tiny, terrifying woman who went through my closet and declared it tragic. We went shopping. I spent more money on a single blazer than I had on my first car. It felt like a costume. But when I walked on that stage, in that sharp, dark blue blazer, my hair pulled back, my presentation flawless, I didn't feel like an imposter. I felt powerful. The demo was perfect. The audience was hooked. We launched to rave reviews. 3 major clients signed up on the spot, impressed by what the platform could do. By the end of the conference, we had a waiting list for our beta program and interest from several larger investment firms for our Series A round. And then, the news we'd been waiting for. Stanton Enterprises, no, Sterling Solutions, announced a delay in the launch of their analytics platform, citing technical challenges. I knew why. I knew it in my bones. They had tried to reverse engineer my ideas based on what Derek had told them. But Derek wasn't a programmer. He didn't know the why. He just knew the what. He had given them the shell, but not the soul. Without the full picture, without the core innovations that I had kept locked away, they'd hit walls they couldn't overcome. Walter called me the day after the announcement. "You did it, kid," he said, and I could hear the grin in his voice. "Sterling is floundering, and you're the talk of the industry. But now you need to decide. Do you want to grow steady and solid, or do you want to go big?" I looked around my tiny Brooksville apartment, at the folding tables and server racks. At the life I was so desperate to leave behind. "Big," I said, without hesitation. "I want to go big. I want to go to New York." 2 weeks later, Brooks Analytics opened a sleek, new office in Manhattan. It was just 10 blocks from Sterling Solutions headquarters. It was a deliberate choice. I wanted Diana to know I was in her territory now. I wanted her to see me coming. The move to New York was a shock to the system. Walter's realtor found me an apartment in Tribeca. It was a sterile, white box with floor-to-ceiling windows, and it cost more per month than my entire yearly mortgage in Brooksville. I ate takeout on the floor for the first week because I didn't have any furniture. The city was so loud. And I had never felt so lonely in my life. I'd call Carla, just to hear a friendly voice. "It's so much," I told her one night, looking out at the endless lights. "You'll get used to it," she said. "Now go buy a sofa. You're a CEO, for God's sake." But I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to work. I became obsessed with growth. I worked relentlessly, pushing my team to their limits. Our Series A round brought in $18 million. We hired. We scaled at a pace that terrified our competitors, and probably should have terrified me. I transformed myself completely. Not just the company. The awkward programmer from Brooksville disappeared. She had to. Walter's consultant came back. "You're a New York CEO now, Marin," she said. "You need to look like one." So, I got a new wardrobe. Tailored suits, sharp dresses, shoes that cost more than my first car. I learned to walk into a boardroom and command attention. My new apartment, my new clothes, my newfound confidence, they weren't just for show. They were armor. Walter encouraged me to be seen. "You need to be in the right rooms," he said. So I dated, strategically. High-profile men, bankers, even a minor politician. Men who appeared in the society pages. I remember one date. A banker. He spent 20 minutes talking about his watch. He didn't ask me a single question about my work. I realized, sitting there, sipping a $30 cocktail, this was the world Derek wanted. This was what he'd left me for. It was so shiny. And so empty. I wanted Derek, when he opened the paper over coffee in Diana's penthouse, to see my face. To see me at those parties, on those benefit committees. I wanted him to see exactly what he'd walked away from. 9 months after our launch, Brooks Analytics had grown to a team of 50. Our client list included Fortune 500 companies. Our valuation was approaching $200 million. We were directly competing with Sterling Solutions for contracts. And we were winning. More often than not. Then came the moment I'd been both dreading and anticipating. An invitation. To speak at the annual Tech Innovation Summit. The keynote speaker for the second day. The keynote speaker for the first day? Diana Sterling. It was a programming decision that couldn't have been more perfect if I'd arranged it myself. We would be on the same stage, just 24 hours apart. The night before the summit, I couldn't sleep. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of my hotel suite, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. I rehearsed my presentation in my head, over and over. But I was also rehearsing something else. What I would say. What I would do when I saw them. Would she even know who I was? Had Derek told her about her new, noisy competitor? The next morning, I arrived early. I sat in the front row for Diana's presentation. I sipped my water and I waited. When Diana Sterling took the stage, the room was packed. She was impressive. I had to give her that. Tall, blonde, in a power suit that screamed I'm in charge. She was polished, articulate, and utterly cold. Her presentation was full of buzzwords and grand promises about the future of AI. It was all fluff. No substance. Then, it was my turn. The moderator announced my name. And now, please welcome Maren Brooks, CEO of Brooks Analytics. I walked onto the stage. The hot lights were blinding. I found my spot, and as my eyes adjusted, I scanned the crowd. And I saw them. They were in the third row. Diana, looking regal and bored, checking her phone. And next to her, Derek. He looked stunning in a bespoke suit, every inch the perfect, handsome accessory. Our eyes met. I saw it. The flicker. The shock. The pale, sick look on his face as he realized who was on the stage. He hadn't expected this version of me. Confident. Successful. Commanding the room. I smiled. A small, tight smile, just for him. And then I turned to the audience, and I began. I didn't talk about buzzwords. I talked about results. I showed them, in real time, what my platform could do. I put up case studies, data, and hard numbers. I explained how we were revolutionizing predictive data analysis. The audience was hooked. They weren't just polite, they were engaged. When I finished, the applause was enthusiastic, genuine. As I stepped down from the stage, the moderator was already announcing the next panel. I walked directly toward the third row. Diana was already on her feet, ready to leave. I intercepted them at the aisle. Impressive presentation, Diana said, extending a hand. Her voice was smooth, but her eyes were cold. Diana Sterling. I took her hand. Her grip was firm. Maren Brooks. Brooks Analytics. A flicker of recognition crossed her face. A calculating look. Brooks. Any relation to Derek Shaw? I said evenly, turning to him. He's my ex-fiancé. Small world, isn't it? Before she could respond, I focused on the man who looked like he'd seen a ghost. Hello, Derek, I said quietly. You look well. He managed to nod. Maren. I had no idea you'd be here. Clearly. I smiled, that same tight smile. Are you enjoying the summit? The presentations have been fascinating. He glanced nervously toward Diana, who was now watching us with a new, sharp interest. You've changed, he stammered. Success will do that, I said. I meant to reach out after I heard about your company, to congratulate you. Did you? I kept my tone light. Well, better late than never. Diana stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. So, you're the Brooks Analytics that's been poaching my clients. Poaching is such an ugly word, I said. I'd say we're offering a superior product. The tech world is competitive, Diana. May the best platform win. You know what I mean, she said, her voice low. Are you deliberately targeting my business? I laughed softly. Paranoid, aren't we? I'm just building a successful company. Isn't that what everyone wants? She studied me, and I could see the wheels turning. She was putting it all together. The ex-fiancé. The rival platform. The technical difficulties her team was having. Darling, she said to Derek, barely acknowledging me, we should get going. We have that dinner. Of course. Derek took her arm, but his eyes stayed on me. It was unexpected, seeing you, Marin. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other, I said pleasantly. New York is a small town, in some ways. Diana gave me a curt nod. Ms. Brooks. Good luck with your startup. Oh, we're well past the startup phase, I corrected her, just as pleasantly. But thank you. And good luck with your, what did the press call them? Technical challenges? Her jaw tightened. She said nothing, steering Derek away through the crowd. As I watched them go, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. This was just the beginning. The confrontation at the summit was a turning point. Within weeks, the industry was buzzing with comparisons between Brooks Analytics and Sterling Solutions. Most favored the newcomer. Our stock price climbed. Theirs began a slow, steady descent. I leveraged the momentum. I pushed for more aggressive expansion. I deliberately targeted Sterling's key clients with demonstrations that highlighted the superiority of our platform. We poached 3 of her top developers, who came to us with stories of a chaotic, floundering project, confirming what I already knew. My profile rose alongside the company's. I was featured in Forbes. Invited onto CNBC. Profiled in the Wall Street Journal. In every interview, I made sure to mention my humble beginnings in Brooksville, the bootstrapped nature of our early days, a subtle, unspoken contrast to Diana Sterling's silver spoon background. 6 months after the summit, we landed the big one. Global Finance Partners. One of Sterling Solutions' oldest and most profitable clients. The day the news broke, our stock jumped 15%. And that evening, I received a text from an unknown number. This isn't a game you want to play. Back off. DS. I saved the number. I didn't respond. The threat only confirmed what I already knew. Diana Sterling was feeling the pressure. She was scared. 2 weeks later, I attended a charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was one of those events I'd learned to navigate, all fake smiles and expensive champagne. As I circulated through the crowd, I spotted him. Derek. Alone by a Greek statue, looking troubled. Penny for your thoughts, I said, approaching him. He started. Marin. You seem to be everywhere these days. It's that kind of town. I looked around. No Diana tonight? She's dealing with a situation at the office. He took a sip of champagne. Something you might know about? Global Finance Partners, perhaps? I smiled. They made a business decision, Derek. Nothing personal. It feels personal, he muttered. He lowered his voice. What do you want, Marin? Revenge? Is that what this is all about? This is about building the best company I can, I said smoothly. If that happens to impact your fiancé's business, well, competition is healthy. Isn't that what you told me? He studied me, his eyes searching mine. You've become exactly what you used to criticize. Cutthroat. obsessed with success. Willing to step on others to get ahead. I learned from the best, I said. I gestured around the opulent room. Isn't this what you wanted? The galas, the recognition, the success. I'm just giving you a chance to see what it would have been like if you'd stayed. That's cruel, he whispered. Crueler than walking out on your fiancé the day before her big break? Crueler than sharing her proprietary work with a competitor? I kept my voice gentle, at odds with my words. I don't think so. He flinched. Diana and I are getting married, he said abruptly. Next month. At the plaza. I raised an eyebrow. Congratulations. I'm sure it will be beautiful. I want you to stop this. Whatever it is you're doing. He actually gripped my arm. As a wedding gift. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A wedding gift? Now who's being cruel? No, Derek. I'm just getting started. Diana is dangerous when she's cornered, he hissed, his face pale. Marin, you don't know what she's capable of. She's not easy, Marin. This wedding, it has to be perfect. She's obsessed. I got it. He wasn't just warning me. He was terrified of her. Neither does she know what I'm capable of, I said. I removed his hand gently from my arm. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Give my best to the bride. As I walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from my CFO. We need to talk. Sterling's making moves. The game was escalating. The next morning, I learned what Diana's moves entailed. Sterling Solutions had filed a lawsuit against Brooks Analytics, claiming intellectual property theft and corporate espionage. The irony. The sheer, blatant audacity of it was almost comical. I called an emergency meeting with Carla and Walter. We gathered in my conference room, the war room. They have nothing, Marin, Carla assured me after reviewing the filing. This is a desperation play. It's a classic slap suit. Meant to spook your investors and slow your momentum by burying us in legal fees. It's a war of attrition. She thinks she has deeper pockets. This is a baseless attack, Walter said, his voice hard. It's meant to bleed you dry. Can we counter? I asked, my voice cold. Carla grinned. With pleasure. We'll file a countersuit. We'll allege that Sterling's delayed platform was actually based on your proprietary work, shared without authorization by her new fiancé, Derek Shaw, during your engagement. That would drag him into it publicly, I noted. Does that bother you? Carla asked. I thought about it for a long moment. Thought about him checking his gold watch, telling me ideas were worthless. No, I said. No, it doesn't bother me at all. The legal battle made headlines. Tech titans at war, the battle of the X's? It added fuel to the already intense rivalry. Our stock took a temporary hit, but recovered quickly when several industry analysts published pieces questioning Sterling's claims and praising our innovations. 3 days after the lawsuit was filed, I received an invitation in the mail. Thick cream paper. Gold embossing. Ms. Diana Sterling and Mr. Derek Shaw request the pleasure of your company at their wedding. My breath caught in my throat. Was this a threat? A joke? Inside, on a smaller card, was a handwritten note. Not from Diana. From Derek. Marin. I'd love for you to see what real success looks like. No hard feelings. D. The sheer, unmitigated audacity. It took my breath away. Was this some kind of twisted olive branch? Or a calculated move to show me that despite our legal battle, they were untouchable? Either way, it presented an opportunity one couldn't ignore. I RSVP'd with a simple, Marin Brooks will attend. Then I called Walter and my investment team back to the war room. I want to know everything about Sterling Solutions' financial situation, I said. Board members, shareholders, outstanding loans. Every piece of debt. Everything. Are we looking at an acquisition? My CFO asked, his voice cautious. Something like that, I said. What we discovered was fascinating. Despite the outward appearance of success, Sterling Solutions was overleveraged. Diana had been taking massive risks, expanding too quickly, and the company's stock was incredibly vulnerable. The lawsuit against us was, as Carla suspected, a smokescreen to distract from their weakening position. Walter's sources said she'd been using company funds for personal expenses, including, it seemed, the wedding. It's a house of cards, Walter said, leaning back in his chair. Then let's blow, I said. With Walter's help, I began quietly buying shares through various shell companies and investment vehicles. Not enough to trigger any alarms, but steadily, day by day, increasing our position. I also started courting key board members and institutional investors, planting seeds of doubt, suggesting that Diana's erratic leadership might not be as solid as they thought. 2 weeks before the wedding, I received another text. This time, from Diana's number. I know what you're doing. Back off now or I'll destroy everything you've built. I'll see you in court. I forwarded it to Carla. More evidence for our harassment counterclaim. The next day, Sterling Solutions announced a surprise press conference. Diana stood before the cameras, looking confident as she unveiled a revolutionary new direction for her company. A pivot to AI and machine learning, areas where we had not yet established a strong presence. The market responded positively. Her stock jumped 8%. My phone rang immediately. It was Walter. Did you see that? She's trying to outflank you. Let her try, I said calmly. She's too late. The week before the wedding, we made our move. Brooks Analytics announced a tender offer for Sterling Solutions shares at a premium that was hard for shareholders to resist. The business world was shocked. A 3-year-old company trying to swallow one that had been around for decades. It was madness. But what they didn't know was that we already controlled nearly 30% of the shares. And we had quiet commitments from enough other institutional shareholders who were tired of Diana's erratic behavior, her lawsuit, and her dwindling returns, to push us over the 50% mark. The takeover was hostile, swift, and brutal. Diana called me directly, her voice shaking with rage. You can't do this. The board won't allow it. The board doesn't have a choice, Diana, I said calmly, looking out my office window at the city skyline. The shareholders have spoken. And neither do you. This is about him, isn't it? She spat. This whole thing. It's because he chose me over you. This is business, Diana. You tried to steal my work. You threatened me. You sued my company. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? I'll fight this, she promised. With everything I have. You don't have much left, I pointed out. But hey, look on the bright side. You still have the wedding to look forward to. I paused, letting that sink in. Speaking of which, I added, I'm looking forward to meeting your board members in a more social setting. I'll see you on Saturday. I hung up before she could respond. The timing wasn't a coincidence. I wanted her distracted. I wanted her off balance. I wanted her humiliated right before her big day. But I didn't want to stop the wedding. No. I very much wanted that to proceed. Because I had one more card to play. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully. Not in a gown. In a custom Tom Ford suit. White, ironically. Underneath, a black silk shell. I selected a platinum Patek Philippe watch, a recent indulgence. I had my driver take me to the plaza. My plus one wasn't a date. It was Jessica, my new VP of operations. A shrewd, sharp businesswoman who understood exactly what today was about. Remember, I told her as we pulled up to the hotel, we're not here to make a scene. We're here to observe. Jessica nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. And to be observed. The plaza's ballroom was a wonderland. Transformed with white orchids and roses everywhere. A string quartet played softly. Guests in designer finery mingled, sipping champagne. I recognized faces from magazine covers, from business news. Diana had invited the cream of New York society. I found my name on the seating chart, took my seat quietly in the middle row, and waited. I watched Derek standing at the altar. He was fidgeting with his cufflinks. He looked pale, nervous, but handsome in his bespoke tuxedo. He looked, I thought with a pang of, not sadness, but something, like an accessory. Which, I supposed, he was. Then the music swelled. Diana walked down the aisle. She was a conqueror. Her Vera wine gown probably cost more than my first apartment. She beamed at her guests, at her groom, every inch the successful, powerful woman. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not loss. Not even satisfaction. Just a curious detachment, as if I were watching a movie about someone else's life. They exchanged vows. Rings were presented on a silk pillow. They sealed their union with a kiss. The guests applauded. I clapped politely along with everyone else. It was during the reception that things began to unravel. Diana and Derek were making their rounds, accepting congratulations. Derek looked happy. Genuinely happy. Relieved, even. And then, Diana's phone, tucked in a tiny, beaded purse, began to buzz. She checked it, frowned, and excused herself. Minutes later, she returned, looking pale. I sipped my champagne and watched. She whispered urgently to one of her executives, who was also a guest. His phone began to buzz. Then another. And another. The elegant, old-money crowd at the wedding, the business half of it, anyway, was starting to realize something was happening. The air in the room shifted. And then, Diana saw me. Our eyes met across the room. From behind my champagne glass, I raised it in a silent toast. The confusion on her face quickly morphed into shock. Into dawning recognition. Followed by something much, much darker. She started toward me, but was intercepted by another board member, who grabbed her arm and showed her something on his tablet. Diana's face drained of all color. The news was breaking. On all the financial networks. Brooks Analytics has successfully acquired a controlling interest in Sterling Solutions. Effective immediately, the board will be restructured. Maren Brooks will be the new chairman. In other words, I now owned her company. And right at that moment, just as Diana Sterling realized that everything she had built was gone, I want to pause for just a second. If you are still listening, if you're still here with me, please help me by liking this video and commenting the number 1 down below. It lets me know that you're here, that you're part of this, and that you get it. It's a small thing, but it means the world to me. It lets me know I'm not just talking into the void. Please, comment the number 1 so I know you're here, and now, let me tell you what happened next. Derek, still floating on his bridal bliss, seemed oblivious. He was chatting with guests, showing off his new ring, accepting compliments. I decided it was time to offer my personal congratulations. Derek, I said, approaching him with a warm smile. He turned, and the shock on his face was priceless. Maren. I didn't think you'd actually come. And miss your big day? Never. I leaned in and kissed his cheek, breathing in the same expensive cologne he'd been wearing the day he left. Marriage is a serious commitment. Almost as serious as business. His eyes narrowed slightly. What are you doing here, Marin? Really? I was invited. I held up my hands innocently. And I wanted to see how the other half lives. It's very impressive. He studied me, taking in the suit, the watch, the confidence that hadn't been there before. You've changed. Success will do that, I said lightly. I heard your company was doing well. But Brooks Analytics, I supplied. Speaking of which, have you checked on your new wife? She seems a bit preoccupied. Derek frowned and looked across the room, where Diana was now surrounded by a group of agitated men in suits, her face a mask of barely controlled rage. What's going on over there? He asked, the first flicker of worry on his face. Oh, just some business news breaking, I said, taking another sip of champagne. Nothing that should ruin your special day. Tell me, Derek, are you happy? Did you get everything you wanted? He seemed taken aback by the question. Of course I am. Diana. Diana gives me everything I could ever ask for. Everything has a price, I said mildly. I learned that from you. Before he could respond, Diana appeared at his side. Her face was ashen. Derek, she snarled, we need to talk. Now. Diana, what's wrong? It's our wedding reception. Ask her, Diana spat, glaring at me. I extended my hand. Diana Sterling, we've never been formally introduced. Marin Brooks. Congratulations on your marriage. You make a lovely couple. She ignored my hand. You orchestrated this. Today. Of all days. Orchestrated what? Derek looked between us, completely, utterly confused. She's taken over the company, you fool. Diana screamed, and the string quartet faltered, the music dying. A hostile takeover. Announced right in the middle of our wedding reception. Derek's eyes widened as he turned to me. You did what? Business is business, I shrugged. Timing is everything. Isn't that what you told me, Derek? Through Diana, of course. You bitch, he stammered. Derek. Diana hissed. Not here. Everyone's watching. And they were. The elegant wedding reception had transformed. Guests were whispering, pointing, phones out as they read the breaking news. The fairy tale wedding was now a business scandal in the making. We should discuss this privately, I suggested politely. Perhaps in one of the hotel's conference rooms? My team has prepared a transition plan. It's quite generous, all things considered. Diana looked like she might explode. You think I'm just going to hand over my company? The company I built from nothing? You don't have a choice, I said calmly. The shareholders have spoken. But I'm willing to keep you on in an advisory capacity. If you're interested. An advisory capacity, she repeated, incredulously. At my own company? My company now, I corrected her. Though technically it belongs to the shareholders. And they've lost confidence in your leadership. Derek was just staring at me, like he'd never seen me before. Marin, how could you do this? Today? Of all days? How could I? I laughed softly, a real laugh this time. Derek, you left me for this woman, the day before I secured the funding that changed my life. You shared proprietary information about my platform with her. And then you had the audacity to invite me here, to watch you marry her. Did you really think I would just sit back and applaud? Diana's head snapped toward him. What proprietary information? Derek, what is she talking about? A flash of guilt crossed Derek's face. It wasn't like that, Diana. I just mentioned her project in passing. You told her enough, I said, my voice cutting through the silence, that she was able to incorporate elements of my technology into her latest platform. Not enough to replicate it, but enough that her lawyers should have raised intellectual property concerns. Diana turned to him, her eyes wide with a new kind of horror. Is this true? I didn't. I mean, I might have described some aspects of her work, but I didn't think. You didn't think it mattered, I finished for him. Because I was just a small-time programmer with big dreams, right? A nobody from Brooksville who would never amount to anything. The color drained from Derek's face. That's not fair. Life rarely is, I said. I straightened my suit jacket. Now, if you'll excuse me, I should go mingle with my new board members. We have a lot to discuss about the future of Sterling, or, should I say, Brooks Sterling Enterprises. As I turned to leave, Derek grabbed my arm. Marin, wait. Can we talk? Privately? I looked down at his hand, then back at his face. I think we've said everything that needs to be said. Please, he whispered. 5 minutes. Diana was already being pulled away by her frantic team, too distracted by the business catastrophe to notice her new husband slipping away with me. I sighed. Fine. I followed him to a small balcony off the main ballroom. The New York skyline spread out before us, lights twinkling in the early evening. Say what you need to say, Derek, I told him, keeping my distance. He took a deep breath. I'm sorry. For how things ended between us. For what I said that day. Which part? I asked. The part where you called me a failure, or the part where you betrayed my trust by sharing my work with your new girlfriend? He winced. All of it. I was unhappy, Marin. I felt stuck in a life that wasn't going anywhere. And now? I asked. Are you happy with the life you chose? He looked back toward the reception, where the chaos was still unfolding. I thought I was. Until the money and power were threatened, I noted. Interesting how that works. That's not fair. I didn't marry Diana for her money. I raised an eyebrow. Not just for her money, he amended. She was stable. Established. She knew what she wanted and how to get it. And I didn't. You had dreams, Marin. Beautiful dreams. But dreams don't pay the bills. I gestured to myself. The suit. The watch. The city behind me. Does this look like a dream to you? Brooks Analytics is valued at over $1 billion. We employ 300 people. And now, we own Sterling Solutions. Derek looked at me with new eyes. I didn't know it would happen so fast. When I heard your company was doing well, I thought. I don't know what I thought. That you'd had a moderate success. That you'd finally gotten your little project off the ground. You never believed in me, Derek, I said, and the sadness of that, after all this time, was still there. Not really. That's not true, he protested. You supported me until something better came along, I said. I leaned against the balcony railing. Why did you invite me to the wedding, Derek? The real reason. He looked away. I don't know. Maybe I wanted you to see that I was happy. Maybe I wanted closure. Or maybe, I suggested, you wanted to rub your new life in my face. To prove to yourself that you'd made the right choice by leaving. Maybe, he admitted quietly. I didn't expect this. He gestured vaguely toward the reception. What happens now, Marin? Now, Diana has 2 choices. She can fight a losing battle to keep control of her company, or she can accept my generous transition package and walk away with her dignity somewhat intact. And us, he said, stepping closer. What about us? There was a vulnerability in his voice I hadn't heard in years. I studied him for a moment. The man I had once loved more than anything. The man who had broken my heart and, in doing so, had inadvertently set me on the path to where I stood today. There is no us, Derek, I said. There hasn't been for a long time. But there could be, he said quickly, stepping even closer. He tried to touch my arm. We could try again. Things are different now. You're different. I almost laughed. You're married. As of about, an hour ago? Marriages can be annulled, he said, his voice low. Diana and I, it's complicated. She's not a warm person, Marin. And now, with everything that's happened, she'll blame me. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You're suggesting we rekindle our relationship. Now that I'm successful. Now that I have money and power. He flushed. That's not fair. I always cared about you, Marin. We had history. History isn't enough. I straightened up, moving toward the door. You know what I realized after you left, Derek? That I deserve someone who believes in me when things are hard. Not just when it's easy. Someone who sees my potential even when I'm still in the messy building phase. You weren't that person. I made a mistake, he whispered. Yes, you did. I nodded. And now we live with the consequences. I could see the desperation growing in his eyes as he realized I wasn't going to offer him an escape route. What am I supposed to do now? He pleaded. Go back in there and pretend everything's fine while my wife's company falls apart? That's up to you, I said. But if I were you, I'd start looking at that prenup. Diana's net worth just took a significant hit. You're enjoying this, he accused me, his voice turning bitter. Watching us suffer. No, I said honestly, and it surprised me that it was true. I thought I would. I really did. But I don't. I just feel free. I never meant to hurt you, Marin, he said, his eyes filling with tears. I just wanted more than what we had. And now you have more than you bargained for, I replied. Goodbye, Derek. I walked back into the reception to find it in complete disarray. Diana was nowhere to be seen, whisked away to an emergency meeting with her lawyers, no doubt. Guests were leaving in droves. The celebration was effectively over. Jessica, my VP, found me by the bar. Mission accomplished? I nodded. Let's get out of here. As we headed for the exit, a commotion near the gift table caught my attention. Diana had returned. Her hair was mussed, her veil was torn, and her face was flushed with what I assumed was a combination of rage and alcohol. Brooks, she shouted, pointing at me. The remaining guests turned to stare. You think this is over? You think you've won? She stalked toward me, her movements unsteady in the giant wedding dress. Diana, Derek pleaded, trying to take her arm. Not here. Let's go. She shook him off. No. I want everyone to know what kind of woman she is. The kind who'd ruin a wedding out of spite. I stood my ground as she approached. I think you've had enough champagne, Diana. Why don't you listen to your new husband? My husband? She laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. The man who was so impressed by your little computer program that he couldn't wait to tell me all about it. She turned on Derek, who looked horrified. Did you know she was planning this? Were you in on it? What? No. Diana, please. Because it seems awfully convenient, she continued, her voice rising to a shriek. You leave her, you tell me about her project, and then, surprise, she shows up a billionaire and takes my company. The accusation hung in the air. That's enough, I said firmly. You're embarrassing yourself and your groom. You don't get to tell me what's enough. Diana lunged forward suddenly, grabbing my lapels. You've taken everything from me. Security was moving toward us, but before they could intervene, Diana swung wildly. Her fist, weighed down by a massive diamond ring, connected with my jaw. The impact was more surprising than painful. She was too drunk to put much force behind it. I stumbled back, but I didn't fall. The room went silent. I touched my jaw. "Feel better?" I asked quietly, straightening my suit jacket. Diana stood there, breathing hard, the fight seemingly gone out of her. 2 security guards took her arms. "Don't worry," I told them. "I won't press charges. It's her wedding day, after all." Derek rushed to Diana's side, his face a mask of mortification. "I'm so sorry," he said, though it wasn't clear if he was apologizing to me or to the guests. "Take care of your wife, Derek," I said. "She's going to need you." As Jessica and I walked out into the cool New York night, the whispers followed us. By morning, the incident would be all over the business press. The wedding day takeover, followed by the bride's public meltdown. Was it worth it? Jessica asked as our car pulled away from the plaza. I touched my jaw, which was beginning to throb. Every damn second. The fallout was swift, and it was merciless. By Monday morning, Diana Sterling had been officially removed as CEO of what was now Brooks Sterling Enterprises. The board voted unanimously to accept the new leadership structure, eager to distance themselves from the scandal. Diana's downfall was spectacular. She gave a few scathing interviews on financial networks, but she just looked unhinged, her accusations increasingly desperate. Within months, her reputation was in tatters. Her social circle evaporated. The last I heard, Derek had filed for an annulment. The prenup he'd signed was ironclad, and without Diana's fortune, he disappeared from the social scene entirely. Rumor has it he's working in real estate somewhere in Florida, selling condos. As for me, Brooks Sterling Enterprises flourished beyond my wildest dreams. The predictive analytics platform that I started in my tiny apartment in Brooksville, well, it's now revolutionizing how businesses all over the world operate. The company that nearly died on my living room floor now employs thousands. I'm in a new apartment now. One I've actually bothered to furnish. It's nice. Quiet. Occasionally, I'll get messages from Derek. An email. A LinkedIn request. Attempts at reconciliation. Apologies. Sometimes, even pleas for help. I never respond. Some bridges, once they're burned, just can't be rebuilt. At my last board meeting, one of the new members asked if we'd ever drop the Sterling from our company name. I smiled. Never, I replied. It's important to remember where we came from. And where some people ended up. Thank you for listening to my story. It's a lot, I know. But telling it, sharing it with you, it feels like closing the final chapter. If you've ever been made to feel small, or had someone try to take what's yours, I hope this gives you a little bit of hope. Or at least, a little bit of satisfaction. If you liked this story, or if it resonated with you, please give it a like, and maybe even share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'd love to read your comments. What would you have done? Let me know. Thanks for being here. Really.